Welcome to everyone. Thanks for coming along today. Today, this is the first of 3 webinars to be held in support of our Maintenance Month initiative. I'm Peter Ball, Aviation Safety Advisor based in Darwin. Both of our guests today are speakers from Canberra, and they're both CASA employees. Craig Johnson is a Section Manager for Maintenance Personnel Licensing, and Mick McGill is a Senior Standards Officer for our National Operations and Standards area. Thanks, Craig and Mick, for your time today and participating in this session. Quick outline of today's session is to talk about all things modular license, such as why have we introduced the system, where to find the information you need, what this license means for you, pathways you can follow to achieve it, and some common misunderstandings and questions regarding modular license. Mick McGill, who works in the area of the airworthiness standards, helped with the development and writing of the modular license legislation and supporting documentation. Mick, could I ask you to start off by telling us what led CASA to introduce this system?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. And hello, everybody. And thanks for taking time out in your day to sit in on this modular license information session. So how did we introduce modular licensing? Why did we introduce modular licensing? So CASA introduced modular licensing in late December 2023, late last year, in response to submissions received from industry stakeholders since the introduction of Part 66 back in June 2011. About the lack of flexibility in the licensing system, particularly in relation to pathways for the issue of an initial license compared to the previous CAR 31 licensing system. As some of you may be aware, the existing Part 66 licensing scheme is an all or nothing license. That is, an applicant has to meet all the requirements of basic knowledge and practical experience for the issue of a full B1 or a full B2 license. Additional submissions received from industry, from the general aviation sector. Feedback also suggested industry wanted to return to a license structure similar to the previous CAR 31 5-category license system, with license categories that better suited the individual areas of interest and workplace needs. Additionally, a high priority of CASA's general aviation work plan was to consider more progressive and less onerous maintenance license pathways that were more suitable to the general aviation maintenance sector. CASA first consulted on the Part 66 with the Part 66 technical working group on the technical details of a proposed modular licensing structure, and then we published a discussion paper on that proposal in December 2022. Submissions received to that consultation were generally in support of a progressive modular licensing structure, which would be based on the existing Part 66 basic knowledge syllabus and practical experience requirements that we currently require for a full license, with the use of exclusions on the license to define the scope of privileges for the license. CASA again consulted in September, October last year of 2023 on proposed amendments that would introduce modular licensing into the Part 66 Manual of Standards document, with the final publication of those amendments made in December 2023. Now, the current structure of the license, as you may be aware, is primarily made up of 2 categories of license, a B1 mechanical license and a B2 avionics license. Under the B1 pathway, we have subcategories for B1.1 turbine aeroplanes, B1.2 piston aeroplanes, B1.3 turbine helicopters, and B1.4 piston helicopters. And then we have a category B2 avionics license. Now, under the modular licensing structure, we essentially use the same 2 license categories, the B1 mechanical and the B2 avionics, but we have dissected the Part 66 knowledge syllabus into modular chunks, resulting in the following modular license outcomes. So under the B1 pathway, you can get a B1.1, B1.2 aeroplane airframe license. There's a B1.3 and a B1.4 helicopter airframe license, a B1.2 and B1.4 piston engine license, a B1.1 and a B1.3 turbine engine license. And additionally, in the category B1 pathway, there's electrical systems and instrument systems add-ons that you can add to those airframe or piston engine licenses. The result of achieving a license that's airframe, engine, and electrical and instrument system add-ons is equivalent to what we call today a full B1 mechanical license. Under the B2 avionics pathway, for modular licensing, we've split that license into 3 possible outcomes. The first being an electrical systems license, then there's an instrument systems license, and finally a radio systems license. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Mick. For those of you that have joined us in the interim, just reminding that we are recording this session for our CASA briefing YouTube channel, and your cameras and microphones are disabled. So just post your questions in the comment sections if you have anything. And you also notice there that our assistant is posting links to the relevant topics as our speakers cover them as well. Excellent. Craig Johnson is the manager for maintenance personnel licensing, which is the area, amongst other activities, that reviews applications for and the issue of Part 66 licenses. Craig, could you tell us a bit about what this license means to an individual and the industry at large?
Yeah, g'day Pete, and thanks everyone again for joining us today. It's greatly appreciated, and the interest is definitely appreciated. What this basically means, and what Mick just discussed, is as a result of introducing this modular license, we've consciously made a decision to try and keep the license structure that we had in place, as Mick's just referred to. So what that basically means is the Part 66 license, as has been in place since June 2011, is what appears in a modular format as unchanged. The difference being is that we've basically chunked the license up such that we can issue a license subject to limitations or exclusions being added. Previously, the training system at the introduction of Part 66 was an all or nothing, so you had to achieve all the outcome to get a full B1 or a full B2. By us creating this modular license, we've now basically enabled the license which was subject to exclusions, which is no different to how the license transitions came from CAR 31 across. We've enabled those exclusions to be continued under this format. So if someone makes an application for a license and they've met both the theory and the practical requirements, they can be issued a license that's commensurate with that training and experience that they've gained during the course of their training and their working environments, basically. There's 2 pathways that have been identified. For those that aren't aware, CASA introduced self-study back in August 2021. What that was as a result of some inquiries and obviously some interest as a result of the CAR 31 the SOE pathway being ceased post-COVID. We introduced a self-study pathway that enabled people to study at their own pace and then sit the respective exams. We have a contracted exam provider that's contracted to CASA, and that company is called Aspec. They are based in New Zealand. They provide the exams and have exam venues all around Australia, and they have a booking system that people can use. That pathway enables people to study, as I said, at their own pace, apply for and pay the fee and sit the respective exams, and then also complete a logbook of industrial experience, which is on the CASA website and available for people to utilise. As a result of introducing this modular licensing, we've amended that pathway such that we've designated the knowledge requirements in the Part 66 Manual of Standards, and we've also created a new logbook which is also available on the website, which enables someone to come through and get an airframe only license or a power plant license, and then continue to work towards adding to that license. We've also got the Part 66 licensing pathway through the CASA approved MTOs. As a result of this modular licensing being introduced in December last year, we've worked with the training schools. There's 5 category MTOs that are listed in our advisory circular. We have an advisory circular AC 147-2. In part 1 of that, it lists the category schools that are approved, and it also has contact details and the training courses that those organisations are approved for. Since December last year, we've got two MTOs currently on board and are approved. We've just approved the second one just recently. The first one is Aviation Australia, and the second one is Cortex Learning. Both of those are located in Queensland. We expect that the other training schools will come on board at various times and seek to have that added to the scope of their approval. What basically happens as a result of someone that wants to proceed down a modular licensing pathway is that depending on which pathway they choose, either self-study or through the MTO, they'll need to achieve the necessary theoretical knowledge requirements, which is listed in the MOS, and they'll need to achieve the practical. As I said before, practical via self-study is via the logbook. The practical, which is COMSI-based training through the MTOs, is currently detailed in Appendix A of the Part 66 AMCGM. That lists the necessary MEAs that are required for either an airframe or a power plant and so forth. Application forms are on the, I think, Pete, you're going to post a link to that at some point in time?
Yes, that'll be up there shortly.
The application forms that are available on our CASA website are in the process of just getting the modular licensing through the MTO pathway forms updated and put onto the web. They'll be on there shortly, but the self-study pathways application form is available now.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig. I think you've covered most of the topics there that we had listed. Just as an example of that, if I already held a B1.1 license and I wanted to add a category B1.2 or a category B2 license, how would I go about that under the modular licensing system?
So under the modular licensing, if you already hold a category of a license currently and you're trying to add another category, the 2 pathways, that is self-study and or through the MTO process, is available. So either you can proceed down the self-study pathway. You'll need to make sure that you've achieved the necessary module exam requirements for that particular subcategory you're trying to achieve, and you'll need to have completed the relevant sections of the logbook that are listed in the modular licensing practical experience logbook, which is available on the web. If you're going through an MTO, you'll need to contact the MTO and you'll need to join them as a candidate or as a trainee, and they'll be able to more generally map some of the stuff you've already achieved in the other category across, but you'll ultimately need to make sure that you've achieved the training, the theoretical knowledge that's necessary, and then achieve those competencies that are listed for that particular modular licensing outcome.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Some of the questions I've had from industry, people are talking about the modular license as a new license or a different license to what's existing out there. I thought we just might have a quick chat about how it fits into the existing framework that we have in place for the Part 66 license.
Yep, that is a good question. I think there is a bit of perception that it is a different license. We've specifically, and as part of our dealings with the TWG, it was specifically desired to tailor the license such that we weren't generating a new license as such. The license looks exactly the same. It's a Part 66 license. The only difference being is the exclusions that apply to the license. In that respect, it is, on face value, it doesn't look any difference to someone that maybe transitioned their Car 31 license across to Part 66. They were licenses that were subject to exclusions. This is exactly the same. The license and the categories are all still the same. The exclusions apply to the categories will be the same, and there's no difference on appearance. The only difference is the pathway by which someone seeks to undertake and get a license now, basically.
Okay, so to all intents and purposes, if I looked at the license, I could probably tell it was a modular license by the number of exclusions appended to the category or the subcategory.
Not necessarily. Depending on the pathway the person takes and what evidence they present to us, they could get a range of different exclusions. They could have minimal amount of exclusions, or they could have quite a substantial amount of exclusions. It depends on what the practical evidence has been presented, both in the self-study and also through the MTOs. The main difference someone will see is the date of issuance of that license. Basically, that's what basically determines whether someone's had a transition license out of CAR 31 or whether someone's got a license now under the modular pathway. But the license, for all intents and purposes, the exclusions could be the same.
Okay, all right, thanks, Craig. Reminder to anyone online there, post your questions. We are coming to the end of the material that we had to present, so get your questions in there, and we'll get onto those. Mick, did you want to add anything to Craig's comments or further expand on yours?
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of comments. So one of the reasons we designed this modular licensing system was to also assist in the obviously LAMI shortage that's out there, which is a bit of a global issue at the moment. It's not just refined to Australia. So with this modular licensing structure, it enables a foreign license holder or a defence person that holds an aircraft authorization today to undergo an RPL assessment by one of our MTO training schools. And then CASA, unlike the previous full license structure where we could not issue a license at conclusion of that RPL assessment until the person did extra training to fill the gap identified in that RPL assessment. Under the modular licensing system now, CASA can issue a license with exclusions directly after that RPL assessment to an individual, and the exclusions will identify the training gap that was identified in the RPL assessment. Then essentially you've got a license, a Part 66 license that you can use straight away. And then at your leisure, you can chip away those exclusions by doing additional theory training and additional practical experience to essentially remove those exclusions from your license and broaden the scope of privilege on your license. So that's a major achievement, we believe, with this modular licensing structure, because it enables CASA to issue a license to a foreign LAMI or a defence personnel tomorrow after they do their assessment with an MTO.
Excellent, thanks, Mick. We've got a question in the comments there. I might just preface that by saying, before I read it out, prior to June 2011, B2 or avionics LAMIs, EINR LAMIs had a privilege to certify for oxygen ATA 35. With the change to Part 66 post June 2011, that privilege was not part of the scope for a B2, but it was grandfathered to existing CAR 31 license holders. So Craig, I might pose this one to you. The question is there any scope to add ATA 35 oxygen systems to a Part 66 B2 license without a B1.1?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. And I saw that question being added. And the information you gave previously is correct, is fully correct. And at the end of the day, those privileges were basically grandfathered across to those people that had privileges at the time. They were given to B2 license holders as part of an inclusion, so adding some extra privileges to what someone had. Because we've tried to create this licensing structure such that, and as Mick said before, we've created a licensing structure so that people can build off it. Ultimately, we didn't want to sway from the current syllabus that's in place right now. So there is no ability to add the oxygen to a B2 license, because if you look at the training syllabus, it's in Part 66. It's not included in that. We've done that purposely so that someone can get into the modular licensing pathway and continue to build on that, and also can develop in their career. So they might start out in a GA sector, for example, and have an airframe license, and over a period of time build and gain the engine privileges and then the electrical and instrument aspects as well. They might end up then broadening their employment scope and then maybe get into the larger RPT world and so forth and stuff. So we didn't want to create a bespoke licensing and training system such that it was fitted and it wasn't able to be captured and moved into a larger environment, basically. So we've created this structure such that it's in line with the syllabus that's already in place, and to make sure that people can move towards getting either a full B1 or a B2 at some point in time, and then adding type ratings as necessary and so forth. Did you want me to answer that second question that came in?
Yeah, thanks, Craig.
Yeah, okay. So there was a question that was raised about Cortex. Cortex Learning has only just been approved this week. So our documents that we have, our advisory circulars and stuff, take a little bit of time to get through and get reviewed and get approved and put up on the web. I suspect that the advisory circular AC 147-2, the update of that includes Cortex, will be updated and available on the web possibly some stage next week. But I can confirm for you that both Aviation Australia and Cortex Learning are approved for modular licensing.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig. We've got a couple of questions coming in through the comments there. Craig, did you want to answer that one after Cortex? Is that for you, or would you?
Is that the one from Bosco Helicopters?
Yeah, Bosco. Yep.
The question is if a modular licensing system can be used to add a category. Yes. So at the moment, I'm not quite sure who specifically raised that question. So yes, the modular licensing system can be utilised if you've already got a category license, and you can utilise modular licensing to add another category. I think we discussed that before. However, and you can also utilise that process either in the self-study or through the MTO pathway. Those two MTOs that are approved can help industry with that and be able to map people towards from one category to another. The only thing that you can't do under the self-study at the moment is you can't add additional privileges, that is, get exclusions removed off your license that you already held through the self-study pathway. The reason behind that at the moment is that there's a regulation that currently sits in Part 66 that basically doesn't allow the self-study pathway to be utilised for exclusion removal from a licence already held. CASA is working towards getting that done, and we're proposing a change to the regulations, but that has to be presented before Parliament and approved and put into place before that pathway can be opened up. But we are working towards getting that done. That being said, someone that does have a category licence and wants to increase the scope of that held licence can go through the MTO process for exclusion removal. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Craig. Mick, there's a question here from Justin. Says, does the holder of a B2 category licence require subject modules 1 mathematics and 2 physics for a B1 licence? Would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pete. So if you look at the Part 66 syllabus, which is stated in the 66 MOS document, the knowledge modules are essentially made up of 17 knowledge modules, and some of those modules are what are considered core modules. That is, everybody, regardless of what license category you're seeking to achieve, everybody needs to do the core subjects. And Module 1 mathematics and Module 2 physics is a core subject for every license. So the answer is yes, you would need to do that.
So for argument's sake, if I got my B2 license via a Part 147 MTO route, I would have already done that. However, if I'd got my B2 license by virtue of a CAR 31 license prior to June 2011, then I would not have done those modules, and I will have to do them prior to going to be issued the modular license addition to that.
Yeah, essentially that's correct. Because the two syllabuses, the CAR 31 syllabus, which was essentially 5-category license, and the Part 66 syllabus, which is essentially a 2-category license, the syllabus is quite different from one to the other. And so the mathematics and physics content comparing the two syllabuses differs somewhat. So if you've gained your Part 66 license through a transitional period back in 2011, having previously held a CAR 31 license, you may not necessarily satisfy the maths and physics requirements of the Part 66 syllabus. Yeah.
All right.
Can I just add to that? We do have the mapping document that's on our website that people can utilise, which enables people that have got CASA basics, have got credits for CASA basics, to map those basics across to what they would mean for a modular license. For a module syllabus exam outcome, basically. So if people have any concerns about that, there is stuff on the website which enables people to have a look at what basics they do hold, and then see what credits they are able to be achieved through the module exam syllabus.
Excellent. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Craig, we've got time. We've got 2 minutes left in the session. Would you like to respond to the last question there from Hayden?
So the question from Hayden's about the MEAs, or the units of competency that are required for the modular license. So at the moment, the information on that is contained within Appendix C of the Part 66 acceptable means of compliance guidance material. So there's a table in there that lists what MEAs are required for the respective airframe, power plant, or B2 modular EINR license. So if you have a look at that, you'll be able to see there's a table and that work that was done and has been published on our website is standardised. We've done that both AEB in CASA and MPL worked quite closely with the MTOs on this, and we work towards mapping all that stuff across to make sure that the MEAs cover the necessary license, and there was no gaps being evident as a result of missing out on some of that stuff. So yeah, so that's where that stuff's held at the moment. At a point in time, there will be a MOS amendment, Part 66, a MOS amendment, when that table will come out of there and be put into the MOS. But in order to get a MOS amended, that's also a legislative document, and that has to be passed through and approved and put on the common law website at a point in time. But at the moment, it is documented. It's in the Part 66 AMC at Appendix C.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig. Well, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Craig, and thank you very much, Mick, for participating in your valuable time today. Thanks, everyone else, for engaging with us today, and very much appreciated. Jump onto the website, look at our Maintenance May campaign. Our next webinar is on Thursday, the 23rd of May. Please do register and participate for that one. So thanks very much, everyone, for your time today. Stay safe and do good work out there. Cheers.